We're ready to go. Our video isn't on though.
No.
There we go. Good evening, everybody. Before we start the meeting, I just need to let those online know and be aware, if you are attending this meeting, our meetings are recorded for future viewing. Would like to acknowledge as well that we are privileged to gather on the traditional territory of the Kwakwa speaking people. So we'll call the meeting to order, and can I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented, please?
I'll move.
There are some additions.
Sorry, sorry, beg your pardon. I got to back up. Sorry, there are a couple of amendments. So under adoption of minutes, your minutes of December 8th, that should say regular council meeting. And then B will be minutes of December 20th, committee of the whole, which was emailed to us. And then C will be the December 17th special council meeting minutes, which were in our package, and then D and E as listed here. So if that is acceptable, can I have a motion to, is there anything else? Sorry, no, okay, to,
Sorry.
E is the two, so D would be minutes for December 21st and minutes for December 28th. So just in between the B and C here, we're sliding in the special council minutes that followed after the committee of the whole on the 17th. So motion to accept the agenda as amended. Moved and second. All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed, carried. Okay. Tonight for petitions and delegations, we are pleased to have with us Christy Fairholm-Mader. Did I say that right, Christy? Hopefully.
Yes, you did. Can you hear me?
And she is going to speak to us on the Coastal Community Social Procurement Initiative. Welcome this evening, Christy. Before you get started, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Gabby Wickstrom, the mayor. Beside me, I have a staff member, Peter Nelson-Smith, which I believe that you spoke with. He's our CAO. Go ahead, Shelley, introduce yourself.
Hi, Shelley Downey.
Counselor?
Yeah, counselor.
Thank you.
Henry Barron, counselor.
Okay, and online we have two other counselors. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Derek Cole. I'm a counselor. Thanks for coming.
Hi, I'm Ryan Mitchell, and I'm a counselor. I'm looking forward to what you have to say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. Would you like me to start?
Yeah, sure, anytime. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So let me know if you can see it, and we'll make sure the technology all works well. Here we go.
While you're figuring that out, I'll just let you know the other gentleman that's on the screen is Kevin Brooks, and he is with McElhaney and involved with our official community plan process.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so does that all work?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me up and chatting to you at Port McNeill. The last time I was up in the North Island was a few years ago when I lived for a couple months in Alert Bay. So got to do lots of wandering around into Swinetula and Malcolm Island and Port Hardy in your community as well, and such a beautiful place. And I'm located now in Victoria, BC, and I'm going to talk to you today about the Coastal Community Social Procurement Initiative. So the conversation we're going to have is going to be about 10 minutes overview and then some time for questions as you want. We're just going to talk a little bit about what social procurement is, why it's important right now, and then how the initiative can help you to advance it in your community if that's what you would like to do. So there's a summary of what we're going to talk about, and I'll review that. So, across the region, which we call, Vancouver Island and the coastal community, so Sunshine Coast and Powell River, Quathit kind of region as well, is the region of this initiative covers. And in this region, annually, governments spend under $25,000, spends is, about $110 million annually, and over 25K, $1.6 billion annually. And the question that we begin to ask and that procurement begins to ask is, are the dollars that you're spending anyways, so you're already committed to spending these dollars for the goods and services and infrastructure that you need in your community, are they supporting your local economies? Are they providing additional community benefit? And we can see that when community benefit is integrated into spend, purchasing from local communities or beginning to ask for community benefit tends to have a much greater economic and social impact. And this is where procurement comes in, is that procurement used to be really around getting the best quality for the lowest price. And that was for a long time what procurement dollars were targeted towards. And then in the 1960s, there began to be awareness of sometimes, best price, lowest quality comes at the expense of environment. And there began to be a movement of saying, we need to look at how the impact on the environment is through our spending and through other mechanisms. So there began to be green aspects that were incorporated into procurement. And then more recently, it's also beginning to ask the question of, so what's the impact of our dollars on social? When we look at lowest price, we begin to then see some of the negative impacts that come from lowest price in terms of workers, in terms of employment, in terms of purchasing online and not supporting local economies. And we begin to see that there's other impacts that occur when we only look through the lens of price and quality. And so being able to say, what are some of the benefits that we can achieve by integrating, looking at the wider lens as well. And so every purchase that you make has an economic, environmental, and social impact, whether it's intended or not. So that impact exists. So social procurement is about capturing these impacts and seeking to make an intentional positive contribution to both your local economy and to the overall vibrancy of the community. So you're leveraging a social value from existing procurement, often at no additional cost to you, because you're beginning to integrate and beginning to ask questions that have vendors respond and to be able to provide and demonstrate how they're providing community benefit and social value. So you have your purchaser value, you have your supplier value. This is the economic transaction. You need something, somebody provides it. You have the social value. It's asking the questions around wages, employment, community benefit, all those questions that you can begin to layer in or ask your vendors of as part of social procurement. And that then creates community value. And there's two different pathways that social procurement falls along. There's social purchasing, and this is your goods and services purchasing that you make. And then there's infrastructure. And infrastructure is either land development, so beginning to ask for community amenities in terms of your development and things that you're doing in your community, but also then with infrastructure purchases, when you build big infrastructure projects, those contracts that go out begin to integrate community benefit agreements. And not community benefit, it's a much wider term of community benefit agreements than the BC government coined a couple of years back. It's more like, what are the benefits that come back to community in terms of employment within community and so on. And we're seeing more and more that the federal government's asking for those community benefits. Provincial government is thinking more about asking for community benefits, but really in terms of what we see from CCSBI is that local governments are leading in this as well in many ways. Social procurement really provides benefits in these four areas. It provides, beginning to leverage for local employment and employment for people who may face barriers to employment. It provides opportunities to ask for skills and training opportunities for young people, for people who are new into the workforce and all of that, and beginning to ask for that to be integrated in. There's social value in the supply chain. So for big corporations that come in, or infrastructure or construction companies that come in, you can begin to ask, are they beginning to procure from in their supply chain from people who are from local economy, or beginning to think about how they're procuring from other, what we call like social value vendors, social enterprises, businesses that are trying to make an impact in the world, and beginning to use those kind of subsequent dollars to sort of spread the impact out. And then community development and local economy. And this is looking at ways that they're partnering with nonprofits. They're looking at connecting with employment agencies. They're looking at how they can begin to provide added value back into community in a myriad of different ways. And we can really see that, especially in this time of COVID-19, is that social procurement is one of the solutions that local governments have in their toolbox. That we know our small businesses and local employment and economies are being impacted by COVID-19 crisis, that this is an opportunity to really thoughtfully think about how our local government spending can also begin to think about connecting that back into achieving local economic recovery and resiliency. The question that usually comes up is it legal? And yes, it is legal to do social procurement. The trade agreements do apply, and everything that we talk about within our resources, of course, are absolutely legal and follow the requirements of the law. And there are parameters. So some of the things is you cannot restrict competition, but you can require community outcomes from all bidders. So you can't say this is a contract if it's within the trade agreements, and there's thresholds in the trade agreements. But if it's within the trade agreement thresholds, you have to say, okay, we're just going to ask, like, how are you going to connect to local employment? How are you going to provide opportunities within your supply chain to achieve our community priorities? There are exceptions within the trade agreements for contracting with nonprofits if you have social enterprises in your area, people with disabilities, and some other areas where there's actually exemptions from the trade agreements. And then, as I mentioned, trade agreements do have financial thresholds. So your spends underneath those financial thresholds can all be integrated into a social value lens. So some of the ways that communities are implementing is that they're really looking at their under threshold and direct award purchasing, that under 25 or under 75K, and looking at how they can begin to strategically place that into local economies or for additional social value. We have a request for information that goes out to begin to build a cross region, so all the way across the region, database of social value suppliers that then your purchasers across your organization can choose from and be able to make connections to. There's social value weighting that can be placed within your RFP, RFQs, RFX documents, and that's really clear with some vendor engagement and training so they know how to respond to it and what you're asking for. A really critical piece is beginning to unbundle larger contracts. You know, there's been some of the successful ways that we've seen other communities look at. I mean, Tofino is a great example, as they had a landscaping project, a streetscaping project, and they contracted you know, they put it all in one big project, and it went to a company that was, you know, outside of their community. And the second time it came to phase 2, they unbundled the contract and they put the landscaping contract as separate so that they could try to engage local vendors to deliver on it. And they did. They got 3 local bids from that. They were able to then give that contract to their local bids. They actually found it was cheaper for them to give to the local vendor because they weren't paying for a big company to ship their employees in, to house them, to feed them, to do all that. And then that money went back into their local economies and supported local employment. So there's ways to look at unbundling in that kind of way. Community benefit agreements provide lots of opportunity to ask for that supply chain, for ask for training apprenticeships, to ask for economic development. And that also is connecting to those contractors' existing supply chains. So this is the project, the Coastal Community Social Procurement Project Initiative has a mandate to, you know, improve the well-being and health of communities and the strength of your economies by changing the culture of public sector procurement, working with local governments. And the focus is on, so far, it's on Vancouver Island and the coast. So communities that see some water get to participate, or on the island get to participate. And it's really looking at having meaning with your procurement dollars. We have 25 members that are part of the initiative currently, and it's growing. So all the way from Victoria to Port Hardy, you know, from Tofino to Powell River, down to the coast, Gibsons and Squamish. They made a strong case that they touch the water, so they get to join. Squamish has joined the initiative in the past month, so it continues to grow. And it's beginning to generate quite significant impact. So as I mentioned, there's 25 local governments so far that are participating. There's over 200 individual members. So if you join, then you can onboard as many staff as you like, and they become part of accessing the resources and toolkits that exist. There's been over $150 million spend that's been mobilized within this initiative that had a social value criteria to date. And that's within the first 18 months of the project. So we're beginning to see that as communities are piloting. So we recommend that you sort of look at what your policy is, what are your community goals, how can we look at how your procurement can help you achieve your community goals, and then pilot something. And so have a chance to learn from that. And to date, there's been over 50 pilots that have been undertaken in our region. And with that, it's beginning to measure and learn and share that learning and share those experiences across the whole network. So there's 4 organizations that deliver the service. We have Buy Social Canada and Presentations Plus. They are procurement experts. So I am not a procurement expert. I project manage the initiative alongside Rod Fisher, who's our project coordinator and also on the line tonight. But Larry and David are our procurement experts, and so they do a lot of the training and resource development. I am Scale Collaborative. We do support to goods and services suppliers and vendors, so helping educate them and build their capacity and able to respond to the initiative. respond to the RFPs and the opportunities that can come out of this. And Rory Kumlala is from the Vancouver Island Construction Association, and he's working with the construction organizations to help them also get ready for these procurement opportunities. So we really took an ecosystem building approach in trying to provide resources and supports across all of those different areas that need to understand what social procurement is in order to make it successful. So here's what the members have access to, and I'm going to just stop here for a moment so you can see sort of the depth of this. There's training. We have 3 different trainings, and it starts with, sort of a what and why. Then we have an implementation training called Social Procurement 201, and that's specific to your organization or your region. So for example, last month, Comox hosted Social Procurement 201. It's about a 5-hour training, and all Cumberland, Comox, and Courtenay all came together and worked on their implementation strategy across that region. So, and then we have a Social Procurement 301, which is construction focused. So all that training is available. There's about 10 webinars that are recorded, and we offer webinars as topic comes up. So we have webinars on COVID recovery. We have webinars on accreditation and understanding how you can verify vendors and what they're planning to do. We have one on P cards and how you can look at your small spends. And so there's a bunch of different webinars that are specific to just little points that come up that people want to go a bit deeper in, trade agreements, stuff like that. And all those are recorded and available, and we continue to offer that as new content comes on. There's an island-wide pre-qualification going on where we're building out the database of social value vendors, as I mentioned, and a working group that oversees that. Lots of communication tools, frequently asked questions, things that we hear come up. We have an impact measurement. We've partnered with Royal Roads University, and in the process of developing out an impact measurement framework that's connected to the Sustainable Development Goals framework, which is a large impact measurement global framework. But it allows us as a region to look at how are we doing around providing opportunities for people who may face barriers to employment? How are we doing collectively at beginning to look at how that employment connects with poverty and reduction and so on? So there's some really good connection around that that's quite innovative. And so they have a research team that's supporting this initiative. We have a consulting, so every member gets 10 hours annually of consulting hours, which can be used, and I'll talk about that in just a second, in all the ways that we've seen consulting be used. There's tons of online resources from not just our communities, the ones that we've developed specifically, such as how do you do an RFP template, how do you do a social procurement policy, how do you do construction RFP, like we have a number of templates that can be used, but also what other communities are doing in other areas across the country. There's a bi-monthly community practice where the implementers get to come together and share stories, and we have somebody talk about what they've done, what they've learned, and then there's an opportunity for discussion and conversation. So those have been really robust, and lots of people participate, and great conversation in there. And then we've developed a recovery toolbox specific to COVID-19. In terms of the consultation support, we provide one-to-one consultation. It's really for like how to do that initial project review, to look at your social procurement policy, to help you get your RFP and your pilots out and ready, how to look at that social value criteria and using the menu to be able to adjust that to meet your community priorities, and to troubleshoot issues that come up. So we're only a phone call away or a Zoom call away, and are there to help, go through the pilots, to begin to look at implementation, and to ask those kind of sometimes tricky questions that can come up. So joining CCSBI, I would say it's easy, it's affordable, and it's very impactful. That your annual membership fee is equivalent to AVICC dues. We're the contractors, so we don't collect your membership fees. The steering committee is supported by the City of Victoria. So City of Victoria does all the financial management of the initiative on behalf of the steering committee. Speaking of the steering committee, we meet quarterly, and it requires every member that's part of the steering committee assigns a political member as well as a staff member. And we find that those 2 levels are really key in connecting sort of connecting the idea and the vision to the implementation. So that comes out, and they're really, again, great. People get to do community updates, talk about what they're learning, look at what we're doing, and really set the course for the initiative together. There's the professional development, consulting support, and access to resources are all included in the membership. So there's this treasure trove of resources that have been developed that are available, that you can go in and begin to dig into what's available. And then Rob is there as an amazing wayfinder to find what you need. And as things come up, then we develop and create in response to what the membership is required. And then we have these 2 cross-regional initiatives. So a lot of this is like support to your organization. And then there's cross-regional initiatives, which is developing out vendor engagement processes and tools, talking about doing reverse trade shows, talking about meeting the buyer kind of ideas so we can connect to our local vendors and to our social value suppliers. And then how do we measure impact together collectively and share those learnings and create a best practice. So I'm going to open it up for any questions that you might have. I know this is really quick. As I mentioned, Rob and I are here. If you have additional questions that you want to come back to us later, we're available and able to answer everything. And yeah, it would be great to have Port McNeill as part of the community.
Okay, thank you very much. Christy, I'll open it up. Council, do you have any questions? Councillor Cole, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wickstrom. So with regards to local employment, is it that in the contract we can't specify you must hire local, but we just ask? Is that fair? Is that the way around it?
Yeah, so you can ask like, well, I can show you some of the templates that we have, but you can ask sort of, how are you providing living wages? Are your employees living wage? How many of your employees are locally employed? You know, what are the benefits? Not all. I mean, sometimes when you look at purchasing product that is not made in your community, then it doesn't necessarily make sense to have local employment as part of your requirement for that one. So for example, if you're buying a fire truck, you might not have a fire truck within that. So those questions would be less of priority. But if you have a construction project that's being built in your community, then you're going to ask, so how are they going to support local employment? So you can ask those questions.
And say the fire truck company is not around here, but maybe they have their own policies in their own community, or does it go to a bigger scale too, where they're, say, planting trees or doing something green?
So the way that we've done is we ask questions. We have about 10 or 12 different questions that ask that. And so one of them would be, so what are your employee health and safety? Do you provide benefits? Do you provide a living wage? And if they're doing that in their own community, then you might value that as being a company that you want to do business with, right? And you can also ask, so how else are you giving back to community? We always have like a catch-all, which says, okay, these are Port McNeill's community priorities. What is the work that you're doing as an organization, as a company that helps achieve these priorities? And that might turn up in different ways, whether they're doing that in their home community or whether they're doing that in your community. You get to see what they're doing and then you can evaluate it.
So like if they're big wood products users, you know, that's helping our forestry, something like that.
See, and that's what's really important about this initiative is that it's like, these are the frameworks, but you get to adapt it to your community priorities, right? We're not doing a one size fit all. We're doing, let's look at your strategic plans or your community plans or where your values are, what you're trying to achieve. And then how does your procurement help you to achieve those as well? So it's really, it is really adaptable and it is a bit customizable. So that's why it's like, these are sort of ideas and you can see what other people have done. But what Tofino has done is very different than what Nanaimo is doing. Like they look really different and that's what's kind of exciting about it.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other councillors have any questions?
I have a couple of questions. I guess my first one would be, how long has this program been running?
So we launched, I was going to say we launched 2019. So we really started going in March 2019. So we've been going for 18 months and it was originally a 2-year initiative. So we had a little bit of a runway to get everything together and build resources and then we started working with the communities in March 2019.
Has anybody left the program?
No.
And is there a way to quantify what the benefit might be to us before we lay out a whole bunch of money to get in? Like looking at what we do, the size of our community, the amount of money we have to spend and the type of jobs that we contract out.
I think
why would we want to do that? Is there a way of quantifying this so that there's...
You can look at your spend, right? You can look at your spend that you currently make and you can look at the areas that you think may be able to align nicely to some of your, I mean, this is kind of the work we do in our workshops is to be able to identify those things, but you can look at your spend of what's upcoming, what projects you have that's upcoming, where there might be ways to connect that procurement to your strategic plan. And I recommend, if you have questions about the project, to talk to Port Hardy, who's a member. I would recommend talking to Pal River or to Quathit or some of those, and they can talk
Okay.
about their experience.
Sure. I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
How many hours and how many people of our staff would have to commit to going to workshops?
It's different for every community. So they have to commit, it's if they want to, they have the opportunity to commit to the training. So our 201 training, or sorry, our 101 training is 2 hours. Our 201 training, where you look and develop an implementation plan, is a 5-hour training. And so there's different trainings that are around that length. They can participate in terms of the community of practice. Those would be some of the areas where staff would participate.
And what is it going to cost?
So I don't know your AVICC fees, but it's equivalent to your AVICC fees.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so we can get that back to you. We don't do the money part of this project, but we can look and see. I'll ask the City of Victoria to respond to that question, if that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay, so seeing none, thank you very much for coming this evening. We appreciate it. Enjoyed your presentation, and yeah, we'll have a chat on a later date together as a council. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, Christy.
Next, we have Kevin Brooks from McElhaney, who's with us to give us an update on our official community plan. Welcome tonight, Kevin.
Hi, Mayor and Council. It's nice to see you all. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, yeah.
It seemed like the holiday season went very, very quickly for my family this year. So it's hard to believe it's almost mid-January already. So I just have 4 things to touch base on. I don't want to keep you guys too long with me talking at you guys. Just give you a quick update. The intent of today's update is just to give you an idea of the work that we've done over the past month, I think, since the last time we chatted with you. And basically let you know what we've done. And then Pete and I will actually circulate some information to you guys for your review on both the OCP, the active transportation plan, and a little bit possibly on the zoning bylaw, depending on how far Pete and I get with the zoning bylaw stuff. The first thing, we released a survey today, which many of you know. You may have noticed that we had some glitches with our with SurveyMonkey today. After the amount of hours we put into making sure that the survey is clean, we actually had a programming issue with SurveyMonkey that we had to fix early this morning, but we got that fixed up. We have about 30 actual surveys completed already, just today. So it looks like if things go well, we're going to have a very good turnout in regards to the online survey. It's my understanding with conversation with Pete that the hard copies will be going out here in the next few days. So every household in Port McNeill will get a hard copy of the survey also to review, which will be identical to the online survey. And so they'll have the option of either providing it in hard copy or online for us. So that's great news already. The next thing we have here is over the holiday season, I was able to go through all of the previous information we received. Based on that information, I've updated the vision statement and guiding principles component section for the efficient community plan. So we have a first draft of that vision statement and guiding principles for council's review. I've provided it to Pete for just to make sure that it meets sort of the discussions we've had. And then what I'd like to do is send that through to council for council's review. And the next time I come in front of council and have a discussion, that you'll actually have a little bit to sink your teeth into and something for us to actually begin to speak about with regards to sort of that key piece that is going to then help guide the future policy direction after the survey is completed here in a few weeks. The next piece is I've also, over the holidays, was able to delve into the plethora of information we received on the interactive mapping session. A lot of really, really great information. From that, we were able to put together a projects list for the active transportation plan. There's approximately 12 projects. What I've done is we've broken it into sort of large capital projects, moderate capital projects, and low capital projects. The reason we have done that is it's fun. Typically, it's the large capital projects you're going to want to prioritize for grant funding because those are the ones that are typically harder to get funding for or more expensive projects. That is one way we can do it. That's the way I propose to do it for now. I'd like to circulate that project list to the council team for your review also, so you can have a look at that. And then from that, our next stage is going to be to prioritize the top 2 or 3 projects that then we're going to do the cost estimates on to prepare those projects for future funding opportunities. Once we have that, that'll be integrated into the actual plan itself with the rest of the components of the plan, and we'll begin finalizing that document for your review here shortly. The next one is the zoning bylaw. What we've done with the zoning bylaw itself is a difficult bylaw. Pete, his staff, and myself have been working very, very closely together looking at the zoning bylaw itself. What we've done for the first review of the zoning bylaw is to update the zoning bylaw map, of course, based on the information that the regional district have, but also to look at the zoning bylaw in a manner without changing anything fundamental in the bylaw, but focusing more on the administration of the bylaw and how we can take that bylaw and make it so that your staff are able to administer the bylaw without needing outside resources of any kind. So they can take that bylaw, they can interpret it, they can apply that bylaw. The bones of the bylaw are actually quite good, but it's more about cleaning the bylaw up, cleaning up the definition sections, and reformatting the bylaw in a manner that the staff can actually administer it. So we've done the initial formatting. We've gone through all of the definitions in the bylaw and cleaned up the definitions. We've also cleaned up a lot of the challenges with interpretation of setbacks and some of the odder stipulations in the bylaw with regards to sort of setback between buildings, things that really cause confusion when interpretation. So we've done our first initial cleaning of the bylaw, what we called house cleaning keeping amendments. We've done that. We've provided that to Pete for his initial review. Our goal would be that we have a really clean bylaw that's easy to administer, and that's what we utilize as we go into our workshopping in the future when we are able to continue with our workshopping and face-to-face consultation component of the zoning bylaw and OCP review. With part of that, the goal would be is after the survey is complete, that we take the information that we've done with the visioning and guiding principles work that we're going to do with you over the next little while, and all the information we receive from the survey, and we actually create a first draft official community plan that we then utilize actually in workshopping situations, ideally face-to-face situation. We'll see how COVID treats us over the next couple months. But timing wise, if we can do 5 or 6 person groups where we can be face-to-face having real dialogue around the actual documentation, I think that will be the most effective and meaningful consultation that we'll get. And allow that conversation component to be had that we've been talking about over the last couple months. That is essential and meaningful in consultation. That's the gist of what I have. One of the things when I'm able to circulate both the active transportation plan and the vision and guiding principles in the next meeting, once you have the stuff to sink your teeth into, I'd like to discuss how we want to then roll out what the next phase of consultation is going to look like. You know, we have a couple different opportunities of what that can look like. You know, we did outline it in our proposal. That doesn't mean that's the way we necessarily need to go. What we need to ensure is that, as we talked about all along, that meaningful consultation piece, what that's going to look like, and what those opportunities are going to look like for this project as we move forward here in the next few months.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Before I open up to council, I just have 2 quick questions for you. For the rezoning bylaw, will the expectations for people who are applying, will it be clear? You talked about staff, but will there be clarity for those that are applying? Because I know the last one we didn't really have clear, you know, this is what you do, and this is what your role is, and this is what we expect.
Yeah, so the zoning bylaw itself will set out, you know, your permitted uses, your setbacks, all those key components, right? The intent, the reality is a good zoning bylaw should be written actually for the residents of the community, not for staff. It should be written in a manner that anybody within your community can pick it up and basically understand what they're allowed to do on their piece of land. And so that's our approach with all zoning bylaws that we touch. And that's our approach definitely for Port McNeill. If your residents can understand that bylaw, that means your staff are going to be able to understand it well enough that they can work with anybody that comes in to do stuff on their properties in a open and transparent manner, in a way that it's not super convoluted and difficult to interpret. And right now there's many sections of the bylaw that are very difficult to interpret.
I was actually thinking rezoning, not zoning, but that's okay. I'll cover that another time. And the other question, you were talking about the active transportation plan, and that would be narrowed down to 12. And then you said something about 3 projects, which you would do shelf-ready proposals. Is that part of the active transportation plan that we, that was part of the bid for tender, that 3 proposals would be written?
Yeah, so the active transportation plan project, the way we're looking at it is we'll do Class C cost estimates on those projects with some preliminary design to be able to do the Class C cost estimate for those. The majority of infrastructure program and grant projects out there require Class C estimates. And so that was the approach that we've taken on this project based on the funding program that is funding that active transportation project. That's a little bit beyond what the actual granting program was looking for. The granting program itself just required to have an active transportation plan in place, but we really wanted to have some sort of implementation plan associated with that plan to allow the town to actually go after potential funding in the future.
Okay, thank you. Council, anybody have a question? Councillor Downey?
I guess just simply, when will council actually see these documents?
The vision and guiding principles, we can have that to you in the next couple of days. The actual list for active transportation plan projects will be to you in the next couple of days also. Pete and I have reviewed those in our meeting last Friday, and we'll get those to you shortly for your review. I'm assuming, is that what you mean for those pieces, or the final documents?
Zoning bylaw, are we going to see that soon as well?
Oh, the zoning bylaw? Yeah, and basically I provided that to Pete for his initial review. And once Pete is fine with the direction we've gone, we can release that to council whenever Pete is ready to do so.
Okay, Councillor, I think Councillor Mitchell, did you have something? And then Councillor Cole?
No, not me.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Councillor Cole, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Wickstrom. So we're talking about reviewing the zoning bylaw. Are you cracking the zoning downtown as well as part of that?
So we haven't tackled that yet, but that's definitely been part of the discussion all along. So there's sort of 2 components in a zoning bylaw. You have your actual zones themselves, which outline what your uses you can do and all those bits and pieces, sort of the detail on the ground. And then you have your zoning map. That zoning map dictates where those uses can occur. That's our next conversation, is once we're happy with how the zones are written and how those are going to be applied, then we have to have that discussion of where should these things go. And the biggest issue that has come up through all this discussion is, what are we doing with industrial in downtown, or those sort of heavy service commercial uses in the downtown? And so that is a discussion we're definitely going to have. It's a discussion that came up numerous times with the focus groups when looking at the survey and how we ask those questions and how we have that discussion moving forward. So that's definitely coming, and it's going to be one of the key discussions we have once we're happy with the general form of the zoning bylaw.
And so I think there's 4, like a bunch of different zones. So it's certainly on the table to have like less zones or all that stuff.
Yeah, we can consolidate zones. There's a lot of opportunity to consolidate, because there's consolidating zones. You don't want to create a whole bunch of non-conformity within your community, because it can cause some issues. But there are opportunities to consolidate zones. When you begin to consolidate and reduce zones, what you want to do is consolidate similar uses or zones that are similar in nature, so you don't cause a whole bunch of non-conforming issues within your community. And so it is one of the assessments that we have completed is, okay, what zones could we consolidate and what zones should we not consolidate because of the types of uses or height restrictions or setback restrictions. If you consolidate zones, are they too different and you consolidate, you're going to make a large portion of your community non-conforming, legal non-conforming, and it could cause a lot of civil issues in the future.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Kevin? Okay, so seeing none, thanks very much, Kevin. We appreciate your updates as always, and thanks for joining us this evening.
No problem at all. And again, Happy New Year, and we'll look forward to chatting with you guys soon.
Yeah, and thanks for getting back so quickly on that problem with the survey.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, SurveyMonkey was a little bit tricky this time, so thank you very much for letting me know about that issue.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Item 4A, minutes of the December 8th, 2020 regular council meeting. Move to adopt. Okay, seconder. Oh, seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Minutes of the December 17th. Those were the ones that were emailed to us of the committee of the whole. Move for adoption. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. C, December 17th, 2020 special committee meeting. Move for adoption. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And finally, minutes of the 28th, December. Did I jump ahead?
Yep, 21st.
Oh, gosh, okay, that's all right. No, that's okay. December 21st, special council meeting. Move to adopt. Okay, seconder, all in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, and finally, December 28th, 2020, special council meeting. Move for adoption. Seconded, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you. Whew. Okay. 5A, letter from the BC Provincial Commissioner for guiding lights. That's the Girl Guides. They are looking for February 22nd, lighting up Municipal Hall or a landmark. I brought this forward because last year we did have a few requests, and I just thought, it might be something that we could talk about. One of the spots that I thought was the flag by the Visitor Info Center. It would be easy enough to put a colored light in there. What's your pleasure, council?
Do we normally do that, Mayor Wickstrom? Highlight special interest groups, whatever they happen to be?
No, we don't, but and that's why I'm bringing it to you. Do you want to start or not? I know that we do have a guiding community that's fairly active.
I guess the struggle I have, and that's why I asked the question, is once you start this, then you end up with, a parade of people who want to be, have a day or a time of recognition, and it becomes a load that we won't be able to support eventually.
Okay, Councillor Barron.
I was just going to say, Thinking Day has been celebrated for 100 years, I think. It's Lord and Lady Baden-Powell's birthday, who were the founders of the Girl Guides and the Boy Scout movements. I understand what you're saying, Ryan, but I would personally, if we're talking about one light bulb downtown, I'd move we do it.
Is that what we're talking about?
I think that's basically
One light bulb?
one light bulb.
Yeah, they're just looking for a landmark or your building to just light up. That's it. So there's, I think, one light bulb at the base of the flag at the visitor center that we could screw a blue light bulb into. Go ahead, Councillor Downey.
If I've read their document correctly, this is an initiative because of COVID. It's a way to acknowledge Thinking Day. This is a one-off, a one-of scenario. It isn't an ongoing. It may turn that way, but I don't have a problem with giving permission this time, given the situation that we are living in and that people cannot gather.
Thank you, Councillor Downey. I actually have that underlined and I forgot to mention that point, so thank you. So did you make a motion? Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we change the light bulb at the base of the flagpole to blue on February 22nd.
Can I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Cole.
As long as it's a environmentally friendly LED light bulb, I'm in support.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. Item 5B, a letter from the City of Kamloops, Office of the Mayor, resolution on the overdose crisis and the call for overdose action plan. I will actually ask Councillor Mitchell, requested this to be on our agenda. Would you like to speak to it?
No, I just would like to make a motion that we support the City of Kamloops in their initiative.
So you would like, is that just a letter of support written?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So a letter in support of Kamloops' motion would be in order. So that's moved. Seconder for that? Go ahead, Councillor Cole. Okay, I'm sorry, yes, Councillor Cole. Moved and seconded. So further discussion on that? Seeing none? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Rereading, yeah.
So what I gather from this, they're looking for an action plan. I mean, if you look at the COVID deaths that have occurred, the overdose deaths have far outnumbered it. And yeah, what I see Kamloops here doing is bringing that to the forefront and having a pan, it says Pan-Canadian Overdose Action Plan.
It's going to be here long after COVID's gone. And so I think it's good for us to support that.
Seeing no further discussion then, all those in favor of writing a letter of support? Any opposed? Okay, carried. Thank you.
Was Councillor Cole opposed?
Opposed, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. 7A, we have North Island 911. It was a requested report for information on how that system runs. So just the recommendation is that we just receive for information. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I would just like to point out on the second page under communication, where it notes human error could cause lack of 911 services. Human error could result in a genset or, not charging the batteries as well. So it implies that if we have a generator, there will be no human error and we will always have 911 services. Just wanted to make that point.
That human error could still occur.
For sure.
Okay. All right.
And are we compelled long-term, Mayor Wexton, to have this contract with the 911 people?
I'll defer to our CAO.
No, I do not. I don't have the contract in front of me, but it does have a term date. I think we just re-signed in 2018. I'm assuming it's probably a 5-year term date, so it will come up again.
And do they have an alternative to our fire department looking after this emergency service? Because it doesn't sound like a very reliable method when you're using volunteers to be responsible for such an important system. Nothing against the firemen, but it seems a bit of an onerous responsibility, and throwing a generator at it is obviously not going to solve it, as Councillor Cole pointed out. Can we just bail on this, I guess, is my question.
I think it's much more complicated than that, and I can find out more information for you through the regional district. But because of how the funding structure, there was a fear that it might change and have an added burden to the region. But that's been sorted out now. For us to take it on as a region, and then, by default, all the municipalities, that also requires the purchase of the equipment, and to have it centralized and be a part of 911 at this point is was determined to be the most effective. And so they were happy to be able to get over that funding hurdle And there was a large community that was going to pull out and might have thrown the whole thing in a little bit of turmoil, so. Councillor Colle.
Well, that's interesting because the regional district office is very ably served by backup power already.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, yeah.
Just for some clarification, the 911 system that's in the fire hall is only for the Port McNeill Fire Department, so that we can receive 911 calls when they come in. And
thank
the
you.
only responsibility that the volunteer fire department has is ensuring that the batteries are charged in a power outage. So they have no other responsibility as far as the equipment goes. The North Island 911 actually don't want anybody except themselves touching the equipment. So the burden of the equipment isn't on the town of Port McNeill. It's on North Island 911. Our only responsibility is ensuring that the car batteries are charged in the event of a long-term power outage.
Thank
Sure.
you. Thanks for that. Councillor Colle?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point that there are changes coming to 911. It's going like text-based, and I recall that the UBCM. So I don't know if that's relevant to this discussion, but might be opportunities to offload that down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll find out more information on that as well. I'll make a note, okay? All right, so next we have item 7B, November and December 2020 check listing. Let's see for information. Yeah. Okay, any questions arising from, we do have Claudia this evening, so go ahead, Councillor Colle.
Yes, I'm looking at page 29, the two invoices for the fire department food. I think this has come up before, and I'm just trying to sort of get a grip on that. It looks like a regular Tuesday training, $1,300. So I'm wondering if anyone can speak to, do we have a policy with the fire department with regards to food and training? And is there a budget? And is it within budget?
Okay, who would like to speak to that? Claudia? Claudia? Good evening, by the way, and Happy New Year.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. To direct through the Mayor, Councillor Colle, actually, there is a budget for food. How they spend it, there's no procedure that I know of. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into the total cost. I don't believe they're over budget as of the end of the year, but I'd have to really look into that and get back to council on that. And that will be actually a request, because I think the best thing to do here is possibly request something from the fire chief and ask him to elaborate on what they're spending their food budget on. I believe that's what council might be interested in knowing. Is that correct?
I guess I'm looking at, yes, if I may, Mayor Wexton.
So hang on a second, I just like Councillor Colle will clarify that question because he asked for it, and then your next, Councillor Mitchell, go ahead.
Yeah, it's that, it's come up before, and I don't, as far as I know, nobody got back to us on it. So the question remains.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mitchell? Sorry.
I look at 3 invoices in a row there for a total of 1,900 and change. I'd just like to know what's going on there and see what's happening with that that practice. I've asked that question several times now, and I haven't ever got a satisfactory answer. It just seems like an awful lot of money to be spending on food for what we think of as a volunteer group. And so anyway, I'd like to know what's happening there.
Okay, so the one up above it is for helmet and rescue supplies, which I assume was a budgeted item, but you're talking about the other two, sorry, line 910 and 911? Oh, and also 913. So could we get, you're looking for directions, so I'm just looking at our CAO is asking directions. So if we could have a motion to seek clarification on the spending on the food and the budgeted amount. Is that what you're asking for, Councillor Colle? Okay.
Yes, please. If if we could get the motion on the screen, continue
Yeah.
that practice would be great. Thanks.
Why does this have to be for staff? May I just speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Our fire department did a training session in October, so the bill may look large for $980, but if they were in the midst of training, and I don't recall what it is, somebody else might know, but that's not out of line. So.
Can somebody tell me how many firemen we have in our volunteer fire department, approximately?
22
Men and women.
men and women.
Could we just make that motion, if you're writing a motion, to include the year 2020?
Just what the total amount was?
Yeah, how much have we spent
For 2020. Okay.
for food? Yeah. Thanks. If Derek is okay with me changing his motion. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, did we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, any further discussion on that? All those,
So,
sorry.
sorry, then, trying to look and talk at the microphone.
yeah.
So, Ryan and Derek, what you're looking for is the amount that was budgeted and the amount that's been spent? Is that the clarification you're looking at from staff?
I think that would be a good start. Yep.
Yeah, and I think, basically report as to why, if there's a good reason, but like as Joe Public looks at this, I'd like to be able to say, we had a huge training day, or there's a legitimate reason we're spending $60 on per person food.
Go ahead, our CFO, Claudia.
I just wanted to comment that the budget amount for the fire department food is $7,000. And at the last report that we did, unless there are other expenditures that have come through that aren't posted yet, they did go over budget by $107. So they do have a budget for the year of $7,000. But my understanding is they haven't reported to us previously of how they've spent that money or on what.
Okay. All right, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
It's just a budget item, I'll support
Yeah,
it.
okay.
It's just reading the budget line.
Yeah, opposed, carried. Okay. Thank you. Okay, great. Oh, any other questions from the check listing?
My only, Mayor Wickstrom, my only other question was the discrepancy in the different amounts that we're paying for cell phone plans ranging from 67 or even less to 183 on a monthly basis. Is there some reason why we have such a spread there? I mean, I've been burning cell phones for years and I don't, it's pretty consistent with pretty good coverage. So how come we're spending so much? I guess is my question on some of them.
Sorry, can you list the line item there that you're looking at, please?
Line item would be
Or what page and then the number?
20944.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
944.
On page 31.
Thank you, 31.
Sorry.
Yeah, I talked twice over top of you, my apologies. Okay, I see, mobility. Okay, yeah, so because this was asked this evening, Claudia, could you get clarification for us on that, why there's such a wide variance in the different cell phone coverages?
Absolutely, I will look into that. It could be maybe some have a data plan, some don't, but I can't answer that actually off the top of my head. I don't think we have a lot of cell phones out there. Maybe Pete could speak on that, the CAO?
I'm not sure the discrepancy in prices, but no, we don't have a lot of cell phones out there. I think just Public Works Manager, Fire Chief, and Harbor Manager.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought there was only 3. So yeah, absolutely. We will look into the difference there.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, one more thing, Mayor Wickstrom, and that would be line 939. It's the same thing, but it's the TELUS internet and fax bill. It's all the rates are all over the map, and some of them are pretty interestingly expensive. And I think it warrants a look.
Okay. Councillor Downey had a question there?
I actually was going to make a motion that we just direct staff to revisit the rate plans we have currently with TELUS phones and cell phone and
internet.
And internet, because the market changes frequently, and you can call one day and it's one price, next day it's another price. So that's probably something that should be done on an ongoing basis. And
Seconder for that motion? Okay.
so the motion is to review the rate plans for internet, cell phones, and phones.
If you could get that up on the screen, sorry. Yeah. And just make a comment to that. I know even as a homeowner, I just make a phone call every 6 months because they don't willingly offer you a better deal. I noticed, but yet I continually get a better deal when I call. So yeah, and I know that it's intensely frustrating to be on hold for as long as, but sometimes it's quite worth it. And especially as a municipality where we're giving them a volume of business. The motion that staff review current rates for internet, cell, and what was the other one? Internet, cell, and phone, and landlines. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And not staff review it, but to explore the rate plans with TELUS specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Just as long as it's
Staff.
clear.
So staff explore instead of review. Yeah, explore rate plans, current rate plans for our internet, cell, and landline. Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Moving to item C, 2021 utility fee increase. The recommendation we're looking for is that council provide direction to staff to implement the utility increases for the billing of the 2021 charges. Did you want to speak to this? I know that you gave us a report, Claudia, but is there anything else you wanted to add on that, or is it self-explanatory?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. We just went with the these are existing bylaws, and this year we're going to review all of these. We did not have that opportunity. I know that council had been looking at the water rates, and I just felt that it was prudent, but it's totally up to council this year with COVID, that the 2.3 increase, which was actually the increase for 2019 consumer pricing increase for BC, was fairly justified, and that still leaves us with some surplus in water. Not a huge amount, but after paying the debenture, we're pretty much sitting around 37,000 or surplus for that 2021 year. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor Paul? You were leaning in, so I just...
Yeah, no, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, for Claudia, the additional 25% discount for seniors 65 and older, is that a mandated thing from the provincial government or something that just other communities do, or is that, could you comment on that, please?
That is totally up to the community. It's what Port McNeil has been doing, certainly, for quite a few years. And that particular discount is just given to all seniors. So there's no timeline on it. Whenever they pay their bill, they're going to get that 25% discount. If you pay earlier, you also get that 5% discount, which is the last day of February, I believe. Yeah, it's just something that's offered to seniors. There are communities that definitely do it. There's some communities that do not. That is totally up to council, but I believe it is in the bylaw.
Mm-hmm. Right, so somebody with a, okay, won't just go there. So I have indicated that I wanted to review these increases. Are we out of time now? I have floated the idea of charging some of these utility service fees for vacant land. And are we out of time to consider something like that? And I would, maybe have a motion on a report, but I was hoping you could comment on that.
Yeah.
The timing of this.
Yeah, that would, you would have to implement a new bylaw, I think, to charge vacant land, which is something we can certainly look at bringing forward for 2022. And we'd have to start working on that this year. And I think it's something that the council before has requested that we do, so, or something that certainly the finance department, because I think this bylaw was put into place, I believe, maybe 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it is time to, pardon?
This is 2018.
Is it 2018? My apologies. I don't know where I came up with 2014. So, it does definitely do. Usually, often you'll do a bylaw like this type of utility bylaw for maybe 2-3 years, because you try to do it so you're not doing it every year. But I think it is time to review that bylaw. I think the metered rates should be increased.
Mm-hmm. That's another one of my questions, actually.
Yeah. And then we can look at adding the vacant lots. And usually that's a decision where sometimes you'll do half of the utility rates. That's just an idea that's a lot of communities do.
Yeah, I'm really interested in knowing, is that a significant amount of money, or is it just kind of, not worth bothering? It's going to raise $1,000 or something, or is it, so I'll let some other councillors do some questions, and thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else like to add? Councillor Downey?
Only a comment that the suggested increases according to the Consumer Price Index was set in place so that the rates would rise at least according to cost of living. And it was never meant to just be a fixed amount ongoing, but I think it was so that we didn't miss the opportunities, because what was happening is our rates were staying static and yet our actual costs were increasing. So we were just trying to keep things moving along together in tandem. So I'm fine with reviewing this, but I would motion that I don't know if we need a motion for this. I would just receive this report for information.
Well, my thought is, well, it says that, so we need a motion that council provide, so the direction is to proceed with the bylaw to implement utility increases for the billing of 2021. And then we can do a second motion afterwards, Councillor Cole, if you like, that we actually review this bylaw for this particular year. So we can do a second motion to that. We're just looking to accept, to accept the increase. Implement the utility increases for 2021.
I move that we implement the increases for 2021 as per the existing bylaws.
Okay, and seconded, Councillor Downey. Any further discussion on that? Go ahead, Councillor Cole.
Just one more question on page 38. I was curious what extra contained tax means. It's at the bottom of the solid waste bylaw fee for services.
Oh,
Extra contained tax.
Container.
okay.
It's an extra container. Whoever wrote the bylaw forgot the ER, so we're only allowed 2 cans out of solid waste, and if they want to put a third can out, it's $2.
And can we change that typo in the bylaw, or we have to change the bylaw?
No, we can do an administrative correction.
Well, that's great. Thanks.
Okay. All right, all those in favor then? Opposed, carried. Councillor Cole, did you want to make a motion to review this bylaw and when would normally? Right after budget?
Okay. I make a motion, staff prepare a report on charging utilities on vacant land.
Can I just interrupt for a moment?
Yeah,
Can we do
you
it
can.
much broader and say that we make a motion that after we finished our budget, we review the entire bylaw and then we can capture everybody's concerns?
I do agree with that, but as long as we're going to look at charging on vacant land, if that's understood, then a report on
you want
utilities.
A report. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish your motion, Councillor Cole.
No, I'm willing to change the motion that staff prepare a report on staff just review the utility fee bylaw after budget.
Okay. Staff and council? Because they need our direction, so.
Yes,
Okay.
sure. Staff and council.
She'll type it up.
We'll see what it looks like
Okay.
when it's typed up. Sorry, that wasn't the smoothest there.
That's okay. I have to confess, sometimes the very first thing that comes out is way better than what we try to muddle through and actually type out later. Oh. We all have that issue. Not report, that staff and council review the
Utilities bylaws.
thank you.
After
Post
budget.
budget, yeah. Post budget.
Beautiful.
Okay. Seconder? Okay, Councillor Barron, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. All right, and item 7D, we have a council appointment to the Harbor Advisory Group, and the recommendation that has been brought before us is that council appoint Glenn Boyd to the Harbor Advisory Group. Moved, seconded. Okay, discussion on that? All those in
Please.
favor? Oh, sorry,
Nope.
yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Are we just one person short on the harbor committee? And I would like to know if this was advertised in any sort of way for additional members.
Yeah, we did.
And it's, do we not have a perpetual ad on our webpage that anybody interested in joining these committees, please contact?
Yes,
So it's ongoing.
yes.
And we have a full slate right now then
I think,
on the harbor committee?
are we still
Just
missing
a
one?
moment, I'm just going to defer to our harbor liaison. She's just counting on her fingers. She can get back to you, but she's
Yeah.
understanding that they're topped up then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We already said all those in favor, correct? Did we say that part? Yes, okay, great, thank you, sorry. Okay, scooting along to, there are no items to be made from in camera, or items in camera to be made public, there are none. But I would like to ask for questions from the public, please. I think there's only media though, if we can go to participants and find out. Yeah, so there's questions from the media. He said no. No, oh, he said no, great. Right there, oh, no questions, thanks, okay, great.
Can I just ask one more?
Yes, sure.
So you know number 8 where it says bylaws?
Mhm.
Can we put there utility bylaws and then like one of those squiggly lines that means estimated May, June? So it stays on the agenda? Because that's what we just committed to, right? Was to do the, or is that bylaws section for something else?
That's for something else.
That's for new and revised bylaws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
just that it doesn't fall off anybody's
Yes,
desk.
but we do have
That's why we have
within Teams,
resolutions.
we've got the resolutions, so they don't fall off, and they are categorized and kept also in our Teams document, so you can look at it anytime. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, so motion to adjourn? Okay, those carried. All right. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Good night, all.
See you on Friday.
Thank you. Fun.
No, Larry?
Yes.
Yes.